I went to the careers fair, and he just sort of laughed at me and one of my mates who were like, "Why are you here?" And they were like, "Go and speak to the factory, and because that's where you're going to get a job. You know, don't even go to the army because you need GCSEs for that, and you're not going to get any." People are like, "Bring your authentic self to work." No, I'll bring my authentic work self to work, because what I'm like at home is not what I'm bringing to work. I was watching a show. I was watching the MTV Awards, and a girl came on, and I was like, "She's hot," and I said it out loud, and then he jumped up and booted me across the back of the head, and just because it was RuPaul. That was the first time when loads of things happened. One, I knew I was never going to really be able to stay in that family. Two, I was like, I knew there was something different, but I was drawn to the difference.
Hello, my name is Ben Cicchetti, and this is Queer Talker with Chris Kenna, founder and CEO of BA Diversity Inc. Before we get to that episode, I have one favor to ask. Wherever you're watching or listening to this episode, hit that subscribe button. It really will make a massive difference. It'll allow us to grow this podcast, and it'll allow us to bring you the best and the queerest episodes every single time. So in advance, thank you. Now to the episode. I have this theory that to truly understand somebody today, you first have to understand their younger self. So before we get into your career journey, I'd love to start with a simple question. If someone met you as a kid or a teenager, what would they have thought of you then? And would they be surprised where you are today?
Yes. So firstly, if somebody met me when I was a kid, they would have hated me.
Okay.
I am not the person I am now. I was a little scally, for one. Anybody that's not in the UK, scally is like a chap. I was in and out of care as well. So didn't really like the world. Thought the world didn't really like me. I didn't know where my place was. You know, there was lots of things going on. So yeah, they would have been very surprised. I remember, right? You know, when they do that careers thing in school.
Yeah.
And it's good, actually. I'm actually, doing this podcast with you, but from Newcastle. And I used to go to high school in Sunderland, because that was the last children's home I was in. It was called the YMCA, and it was like self-contained units that you could go into when you were 15. And so I went to the careers fair, and he just sort of laughed at me and one of my mates who were like, "Why are you here?" And I'm like, "Oh, because we want to see what's going on. We actually just wanted to see the army one." And they were like, "Oh, well, over there is for this big factory that was in Sunderland at the time." And they were like, "Go and speak to the factory, because that's where you're going to get a job. Don't even go to the army because you need GCSEs for that, and you're not going to get any." So yeah, so I think if I was to see them now, I'd be like,
"Look what happened." Yeah.
Yeah. Would you like a job now, miss? So yeah, I think people would be surprised.
And do you think that experience kind of shaped who you are today? Did it help motivate you to be who you are today?
Yeah. Like, I was pretty angry as a kid, but now I've turned that into like motivation. Do you know what I mean? So like, whether it's businesses, whether it's career-wise, whatever, I now I'm not just frustrated with everything. I still have this innate thing inside where I have to be the best in the room. Do you know what I mean? And not arrogantly now. It used to be an arrogant thing, and like I get frustrated if I didn't win at sport or something, or I train and say, "Okay, I want to go again." Or even on the bad side of it, like sort of when you're in a children's home and there's like 24 other guys and you're in a 25 person building, then there could be a lot of anger issues and trouble. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, that frustration would come out in fighting, and then I got in trouble with the police a lot as well. And I got with the wrong crowd sometimes. So now I sort of still have that same anger. Like, why didn't I have parents on parents' evening? Why would people let me go into care when they're over there and they seem to be okay? Why can't they keep me with them? But actually, now I've turned it into, okay, well, I will build £100 million business, and I will do good and be known for that. I'll be known for something. I'm going to leave tomorrow better than I found it today. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah, I love
so
that.
it's just channeled into that now, and it's still aggressive. Like I would say, I would say I'm an aggressive business person, not like a nasty one, but I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
like, I like, I'll never stop,
yeah,
and whether one company goes into liquidation before you even know that that's I've got another one and I've employed another 100 people and we're going at it again. We're going to do things different because we're not going to make the same mistake twice,
yeah,
because being streetwise from earlier is now transferred into being business savvy. Okay, you can make mistakes. That's fine. Make them, learn from
yeah,
them, move on, do it again. Do you know what I mean? And I think another trait as well I took from when I was younger is like fearlessness in business. Like, I would say one of the biggest like obstacles for entrepreneurs is the the what happens if it doesn't, or if
yeah,
that doesn't happen, or can
yeah,
I survive if I just don't have any of that fear. Like, I would never ever. I have my own family, I'm here now, sat on the other side of this table. It's my son. I've got my partner. Like, I'll never not have a family again. Like, it's not possible.
yeah. And part of what you obviously do, and part of that kind of $100 million company, is focused on representation. And you're now
Yeah.
playing a major role in shaping representation of LGBTQ plus people, people of color in media. Do you remember the first LGBTQ plus person you became aware of, either in real life or through media? And do you think that representation, or maybe lack of it, influenced how you see yourself and saw yourself back then?
Yeah. So I was about 12 or 13, and maybe 11 or 12 actually, because I was actually back home at the time. Um, and then my stepdad, I watching a show, I was watching the MTV Awards, and a girl came on, and I was like, she's hot. And I said it out loud, and then he jumped up and booted me across the back of the head. And just because it was RuPaul giving an award out on
Right.
MTV Awards.
Okay.
And that was the first time where loads of things, I look back at
Mm.
it now, and I'd forgotten about it. And it wasn't
Yeah.
until quite recently that I was sort of like, oh, yeah. Because that was the first time when loads of things happened. One, I knew I was never going to really be able to stay in that family. So that was
Yeah.
one thing, once that happened. Two, I was like, I knew there was something different,
Yeah.
but I was drawn to the difference.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? Even though I didn't know anything about drag queens or anything like that, but I just seen somebody that looked good.
Yeah.
Because, RuPaul looks good now. So imagine
Yeah.
what it
Yeah.
looked like 20 years ago. Like, so, yeah. So that was probably his first representation ever seen on TV, I think, that I
Yeah.
knew.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't
That's
think there was
amazing.
many singers. Oh, actually, I wouldn't say there was any really. Well, no, because even like back then, I'm 42 now, so everybody that was, we didn't find out they were till 10 years, within the last 10 years. If you
Yeah.
think like, Boy George might have, but I would say, Wham was still
Yeah.
Wham at the time. Madonna was advocating for, but
Yeah.
was never saying she was. Do you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it was more like provocative things were going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Christina and Britney kissed, but
Yeah.
everybody knew they had, one had Justin Timberlake over there, and the other one, I don't know who Christina had. Although
Yeah.
she looks good now.
She looks amazing.
Um, she does, doesn't she? Like,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
really, this is her time now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but we're digressing. Yeah. So I don't know if there was much There was no presenters that were out
Yeah.
then.
Mm.
Julian Clary was probably one that was around, but you never really, at that time, never really said that he was queer. Just
Yeah. Yeah.
spoke in a way that associated you, but never
Yes.
really. I don't think he ever came out till years later. And then even, Lily Savage was pretty big then as
Yep.
well. But I don't think Paul O'Grady had come out then neither, or actually said it.
And I think you only saw Lily Savage, right? Like at
Yeah.
that time, later, Paul O'Grady actually took the spotlight. But at the
Yeah.
time, it was Lily Savage. And therefore, you weren't getting to know Paul O'Grady as the person behind it. So you don't necessarily get that kind of representation.
So it was hard to find any really. And then obviously from the motherland came Petersburg.
Yeah.
And then that changed everything really, didn't it?
Yeah. It was a big change.
The club, which is Cruise, but they called it Babylon now after it being Babylon in the series.
Yeah.
Me and my son were actually there. I was like, I'm going to take you somewhere where I used to drink before. And we went to that club the other night.
Nice. That's
when
awesome.
we were in Manchester because he's visiting before he goes off to the German army. So I was like, come where your dad used to go.
Yeah.
We were in Babylon.
That's awesome. That's very cool. One of the things I really admire about you, and I'm sure listeners are already picking up on this, is you are just very much authentically yourself, whether it's podcast, on stage at events, in person. When I've met you, you always feel very authentic to me. When do you think you first felt authentically yourself, either at school, military, or a business? And then what was the turning point that you made you feel, I can just bring my full self to the table. I don't need to hide any element of who I am.
Yeah. When did it happen? Was only in the last 10 years, I'd say. Truthfully.
Yeah.
Like, even though like stuff, I got divorced, stuff come out, I got with Dean and stuff like that. When did I start not giving a damn what people thought? And it's really weird because I wish it wasn't sat opposite me, but it was actually so his son used to come and stay with me, and when he stopped caring about what people were thinking about me, then I stopped caring what people were thinking.
That's interesting.
That's the truth. Do you know what I mean? When it didn't bother him, when I knew just me being on stage talking about this, or me being in media or podcasts or articles and stuff, when I knew it wasn't embarrassing him, when I knew he wasn't going to school worrying about what everyone's going to say about me.
Yeah.
Once I knew he was fine, then I was fine with me.
Yeah.
But up until that point, I hated everything about it because it was affecting him, and that's not fair. He was just bored. Do you know what I mean? Like, it should. But once he stopped giving a shit, then I was like, I don't give a shit. Good. Yeah. That's fair. So I would say like that's the time really. And I was very lucky with Dean and family, and with Vicky, my ex-wife, his mom, that like everybody sort of moved on. Yeah. Like we all get on.
Yeah.
Him and his mom and his other sisters have come and stayed at our house on holiday before, like
I love that.
life moves on. We're only here for a very short period of time in the whole grand scheme of things. So we can either have hate, and there's a lot of it going around at the moment. Yeah. And I think people are going to need to dig deep for the next couple of years to really, but
find the hope.
Find it, and then that's it. And then things fall away, once you can get a bit of acceptance around you. And sometimes I could have never done this with him, so it's great, that he allowed me to be authentically me. But for other people, when it's not their kids, then sometimes there's some people you just got to say, you're never going to get it. So I'm sorry, but not family.
Yes,
much. Well, not immediate, but sometimes it is family. I'm trying to skirt around it because I would have never done it with Jerome.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Or with his mom, but there's some people that just will never get it.
Yeah.
Like my stepdad, and she is my biological mom. Then we will never speak again. Even well before all this happened, they'd already let me go into care when I was younger anyway. Yeah. But we'll never speak again, just because there's like, I don't know, things people just can't, are so stuck in like the old ways of things. Minds just can't change. Do you know what I mean? Like, it must be a sad place to be. I'm glad I accept me, and I appreciate you saying that authenticity. there isn't one Chris, just like there isn't one Ben, I'm sure,
Yeah.
people are like, bring your authentic self to work. No, I'll bring my authentic work self to work.
Yes. 100%.
Because what I'm like at home is not what I'm bringing
Different
to
vibe.
work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then I even have two vibes with two sets of friends. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? You got
exactly.
your suaves, and then you've got your messies. You've been with both, and then, when if I'm speaking on stage and then I'm bumping into people like yourself, it's not the same that if I bumped into you at GY. You know what I mean? It'd be get some Jaeger bombs down off
There you go.
and get on the stage. Do you know what I mean? Like, it would. So yeah. So I think I do struggle with the, where people, and I'm not calling anyone that does these courses because I'm sure they're good, but where you do like a half-hour course and now the whole company could bring their authentic self to work, and you're like, no, that come on. It will have helped with something, but you don't need to bring everything to every part. Like, it's not, how I am with my son and I'm with my partner. It's not the same as, I don't need to bring that to work. You don't need to see that part of me. That's mine, So I will always be authentic, but it'll be it's a contextual authenticity. It's where I am.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. And speaking of, where you are, and obviously where you started your career was, as you mentioned, in the military.
Yeah.
What do you think drew you to serve, and how did that experience of serving shape you today? Were you out while you were serving? Kind of what was your experience in the military?
I loved the army. Like, it was the best thing I could have done. I joined young. And then obviously when I joined, the British Army hadn't had any wars or anything since the year I was born. I was born in 1982. The Falklands was in 1982. So there'd been nothing for all of my life. So I was like, oh, this will be easy. And I was fit. And and then a couple of planes hit a couple of towers and the world changed. And, and I was there on an army camp when that was happening live, and they got us out on parade. And then the second one hit while we were on parade. And then everyone went into, they locked down the camps, and then we knew we were going to war at some point. And it sort of took about a year or so, didn't it, before Blair and Bush actually sent us. Yeah, I loved every bit of it. And obviously not war, that's not what I'm talking about. But I loved what do I like? I liked having set procedures for things. I like uniformity. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you go in my house, if there's a shelf, there has to be the same thing on the left and the right. Like, or it's in the middle and it's one thing. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, I like
structure. You like the structure.
I like symmetry. If the room, I live in a place and it's not all done by me. Props to Dean. He actually does it.
Okay.
But if the house is messy in any room, my mind is messy and my life becomes messy.
Interesting.
So, like, the house is clean all the time. Everything's in its place. If you go into the drawers, then you realize it's just chaos. Superficially clean. Yeah. The chaos is in the drawers.
Hidden.
You're hidden away. But if it's hidden away, my mind is still, do you know what I mean? So, and I've got a few tics and stuff like that just things I have to, and a bit of OCD and things as well. But I like that structure. I've always had it. When you're in a children's home, I had it enforced in home life. Then it was children's home. It was just regimental because it's a business, not a home, and then the army was just the next progression for that. And then, like learning things like integrity and leadership. Now, the flip side is the leadership you learn in the army really gets you in lots of trouble on Glassdoor in real life. So,
in what context?
Well, because in the army, you go in, you say what needs to be done, and you make sure each person knows what needs to be done, and then you leave. Okay, and then you do what you need to do in that, part of the pie, and everybody else does what they need to do. Nobody really doesn't do it, but also you don't need to do things like make people think it was their choice to do it, or
Right.
not tell them to do it,
Because they're just following
ask
orders,
them
right?
because they're following orders.
Yeah.
You can't do that in a business.
Yeah,
And I've
yeah.
learned that the hard way,
Okay. Yeah.
that I'm a really, I would say, I've always said this sentence. I think I'm a really good boss, and I'm a poorer leader at the moment. I'm learning leadership, because
Okay.
being a boss is where you boss people. It's in
Yeah, yeah.
it's in the word. Whereas leadership, you got to lead them,
Yeah.
and if there's 10 people, what tends to happen with me is if there's 10 people working with us, 8 will say I'm the best person they've ever worked wherever they look, and they're inspired every day. 2 will fucking hate every moment of it.
Interesting.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I know a lot of mates are like, just go with the 8. Like, don't give a fuck about 2. But actually, the it's them 2 that are the loudest,
Yeah, yeah.
and they affect the next 10 that may have come and
Exactly.
joined me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So you do actually, them 2 are the ones I need to bring around.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I found the transferable skills of leadership from military to civilian life has not been easy. But what I've had to work really hard on, and I'm still not there yet, is not very good yet at the hand holding bit.
Mm.
And some of leadership does need that. And
Yeah, yeah.
I've not quite yet got good at that, because I'm running so fast myself that I can sometimes get frustrated by the slowness or the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
inactivity of others. But they're not all good. Some it's just a job,
Yeah, yeah.
and it stops at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
just life, and I need to get used to that. And
Yeah.
but for me, it's not. It's everything. It is to change a world that is unequal. It is
Yeah, yeah.
inequality. It is. I feel like sometimes, even though it is just a business, just a black TV channel, it's just a black movie channel. But for me, it's everything that I always wanted in this country, because we've never had one. We've never had a black entertainment channel or a black British movie channel ever.
Yeah.
I'm so very proud that we brought that to everybody. But it's it's more for me. It's a fight sometimes. And then there's also the thing, and I don't know if you have this, because I know you're an absolute advocate as well, is if you spend a long time fighting for things, then sometimes when you turn back to the people that are already in your circle, it can take a few minutes, and I mean real minutes and metaphorical minutes, to readjust to not being fighting over here, because you've just had to fight everybody over there.
Yeah.
Like, everyone's got something to say. Even the good ones are pushing back on a little bit of it, especially when it's about LGBTQ plus. Do you know what I mean? Like, even within our own community, one hates the other,
Yeah.
so it's always a fight. If I'm in a gay bar, I'm fighting with, well, what's wrong with trans people? Like, what, and what does it matter to you? Oh, and now they've got 2 spirits. Well, does it matter?
Exactly.
Does it matter? Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure you've had the conversations, like the old, especially older gay men, they're just like, well, there's too many fucking acronyms now. I'm like, whoa. Don't forget who chucked the brick.
Exactly.
At the police.
Yeah.
It's still
where this started. Yeah.
Yeah. You seem to have forgotten. And the little racist comment you said there as well. She was a black transgender woman called Martha P. Jensen.
Yeah.
So, remember, the only reason you get to wear the horrendous hot pants and walk down the street, 95-year-old angry man, is because black transgender woman chucked a brick and started it all off. Don't go going off the movie where they swapped her for that pretty white boy. Do you know what I mean? So
and they're facing erasure, right? Like, we're seeing it over, I think it was over the weekend, one of the US government sites that's focused on the Stonewall and has erased, any reference to trans and queer people. They've changed LGBTQ to just LGB, which there's an LGBT alliance here in the UK, which is this kind of a very hateful group and spreading a lot of really negative information. So it's a really scary time, and they are kind of really trying to erase trans people from the community, which is just...
Yeah. It is, absolutely. And so you're fighting a lot, fighting a lot, and advocacy, whether it's alongside my friends at Out TV for Pride TV, whether it's speaking with people like yourself, even if we're doing podcasts about other stuff, it's going to come back to this because we're both part of a shared community and a shared passion for honouring that community. It's just always fighting. And then, I'm Black as well, so I'm fighting that. And then there's a lot of military hatred as well, especially in the UK at the moment. So I'm fighting that as well. And yeah, some might say you don't need to be part of every fight. Like, just live your life. But then if we all did that, then it would be fine. But if 20 people are in a room and 19 of them live their life, but one of them takes it upon themselves to pick apart everybody else, then who's standing up to them?
Exactly.
There's 19 people trying to live their life and one bully making it hard for the other 19. So I just want, so if there's 20 people in a room, I will be the one fighting the one that's I've got too much to say because they're a keyboard warrior. And I'm not saying I'm not even saying my views because I would even say as well, it's not like fighting for views, for my view. It's just that any view is valid.
Yeah.
Even what Trump says, it is valid. Just don't enforce it upon people.
Mm-hmm.
Choices can be made. It's valid because it's a view.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? I will give that to any view, even the ones that in the pit of my stomach make my skin crawl. I will give it because it is valid because somebody thinks it. Okay, fair enough. I will respect and honor that. I don't agree, but I respect and honor that. So bringing it back to what we were saying in leadership, I've struggled with lots of things, and when's not a fight, and then am I bringing things into the office, and then having employees, especially when you've got a lot of them, it's like having lots more kids.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Without Father's Day cards or Christmas presents or birthday presents. So I didn't ask for the kids.
Obviously, you touched on your company, BA Diversity Inc., media technology production company. Part of its offerings, obviously, is two own channels, Generation Black TV, Generation Hispanic TV, and I know you have a partnership with Pride.tv. Why is it important to not only have representation in media and representation on screen, but to have channels and companies specifically focused on these communities?
So we're now an American company. I set up this business whilst living in New York. And the 2.5 years I was living in New York, on all the posters, all over, all I would see is Black British TV. Top Boy, Supercell, Kitchen. They're the most watched things on Netflix in about 90 countries, I think. And not a single British person's making anything from the billions that they bring in. So I started a Black channel where all that content can sit, and all the same people that make them shows are making shows on our channel, whether it's Ratman or, we've got some of his earlier stuff. We've got people like Freddie Nowaka, who is actually our head of content now, who's made a lot of these films. Yeah, so I wanted a home for Black TV where the creators can earn money off the show. They can make shows from our commissioning budgets. So we have the first Black commissioning budget in the UK. We have just opened a TV studio in Manchester, first Black TV studio in Manchester. It's a 2,000 square foot virtual production studio. Virtual, which I only learned this when we were building the studio. Virtual doesn't mean it's not there. Who knew? Virtual just means there's TV screens at the back, the roof, and the sides, and what you put on the screen is what you see in the camera. So if you want to be on Mars, you put a 3D video of Mars on the screen, stand the actor in front of it, all of a sudden it looks like they're on Mars.
Yeah,
we don't use green screen. But why call it virtual? Because virtual sounds like it's not quite there, but it is.
Yeah,
there.
I think Lucasfilm have done a lot of this, right? With a lot of the Star Wars shows, they've used the same technology. It's amazing.
Yeah. So we got that one, and then we're partnered. The people that built that one for us, they have a 10,000 square foot one in London as well. So, we've been doing a lot of our own productions now, a
Yeah.
lot of productions for the show. And I just wanted a home for, and also so we can start nurturing some talent, like so we can have more people that look like me, more people that come from communities like your own, like they can just get jobs and show their talent. And yeah, everybody can stop thinking that DEI makes planes fall out the sky.
Yeah. And I was at your upfronts, and just some of the work that I saw that's coming, it's incredible. And some of the people you're working with are just incredible. So I'm super excited to see more and more of that to come. I know you've got an app that's coming or may have already dropped by the time this episode comes out. So lots of incredible things coming.
Yeah. Oh, I feel like I'm on Graham Norton. You know where everyone always gets it wrong? They're like, so I've just performed, like, you haven't performed yet.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I'm like, yes, the app is in App Store,
It is.
iOS and Android now.
Perfect. So everyone should go download it. We'll include a link to it actually in the podcast notes so people can go and find it.
Awesome.
And obviously one of the things you touched on is obviously living in the US for some time and now back in the UK. Yeah. Obviously the political climate, as we know, is difficult here in the UK, but at the moment it particularly seems difficult in the US for LGBTQ plus people. How do you find it differs UK to US based on your experience of being in both from an LGBTQ plus perspective, but also more broadly from other communities?
Honestly, for me, whether I was living in the US as a Mancunian living in New York or technically I'm not a Mancunian, I was born in the Isle of Man, but my accent's Mancunian. Or the other way around, there isn't that much difference, if I'm honest. From my point of view, there isn't, but then I sort of went from Manchester to London and London to New York. And really, if I was going to say which one's the best out of all three, Manchester, hands down. I'm back in Manchester now, and every day I'm meeting in Manchester, like, why have you moved from New York back here and you're smashing it out there? So go and stay there. No, because Manchester is like one big incubator. That's why I honestly, so, I know I'm switching your question a little bit because there is no difference between them two, to be honest. They're both hard cities. They're both people don't speak to you. They're both, do you know what I mean? It can be hard to make friends there and stuff, but they're pretty much on par, to be honest. Not much difference. But Manchester, and I'm sure there's loads of other cities outside London that are like this, but Manchester, some of the biggest companies in the UK in the last 10 years have all come out of Manchester, whether it's Social Chain or Pretty Little Thing or Boohoo.com or Lad's Bible or Unilad or Misguided, or do you know what I mean? Like, these have all come from one small 1.6 million city. And the reason is because everyone wants to see everyone else succeed, because that's just a northern way. You don't need to gatekeep. You don't need to be false and pretend like, say you're going to help somebody but not help. And it's just like, I've only realized it since coming back, but like, it's a big incubator for everybody. It's like, and as everybody, you could notice as well, all of the companies, and then even Ben Francis, who did Gymshark, but also started Man and DeVoe with Reese in Manchester. And so, like, everybody's risen everyone's helped in some way. If people said they were going to do an intro, the intro happened. In New York or London, whether it's from the community or the LGBT community or anything, when somebody says they're going to do an intro, they lied.
Okay.
Unless they were stood right there and they said, meet my friend, they lied. It was like, honestly, you go to all these New York things and they just lied. Do you know what I mean? So I'm going to chuck in another city into your...
I love that.
And the only thing that's disappointing is I really need someone to buy Canal Street and do it up. Like, you can't just stay the same. Not for 100 years. Come on. Even the bars are still called the same. I mean, I'm very surprised they're run by the same people, because they were old when I was there, and now they're still going. I love them all. They all know who I'm talking about. But that's the only thing in Manchester. Everything else, like, I live in a skyscraper in Deansgate Square, and my view is not too dissimilar to my New York view. Honestly, it's just skyscrapers, and I'm like looking down Deansgate, and there's just high rises all over. There used to only be Beefing Tower when I was there. You know, and the Hilton was half of it, and then apartments were the other half. Now that they're everywhere, like it's got a little New Yorky vibe, but it still maintains that incubator thing.
Yeah.
And it's an incubator for not just like for businesses, but for the community as well. You know, like the LGBT Foundation there is one of the hubs of that Manchester, you know, and like when them two guys got beat up on the tram, and then so everybody in Manchester started singing show tunes on the tram for a whole month, like that's when you know, like that's your city. Do you know what I mean? Like that does that. That wouldn't happen in New York. Like maybe some people will go down, protest outside something, but not whole city of everybody saying, you know, like this isn't just your fight. Like we're not letting that happen in our city.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's
I love
the city,
that.
I'd say.
I've never been to Manchester yet, so you've sold it to me. I'm gonna have to make a trip up north.
You need to
and check it out.
I will take you around.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. We obviously started this talking about your younger self. So if we take us back to that, what advice, based on this conversation we've had and everything you've learned, what advice would you give to your younger self? And would it be different if I said, what advice would you give to a younger LGBTQ plus person?
Yes, it would. Advice I'd give to my younger self. Oh God, that's a big one. Probably say go for it sooner. I wish I was doing everything, you know, like running, working in TV, owning TV channels, you know, running a company. I wish I'd done it 10 years sooner. I just didn't have the confidence. I didn't think, I didn't even go to, finish high school. I didn't do one GCSE at school, like not one. Okay. We just didn't go, you know, like they sort of said to the whole children's home, we'd rather you were disruptive, just don't bother coming. And I was like, great, I'll go and hang around at Greg's. But don't know why I put Greg's in there. It's because from the Northeast. I would probably say, go for it. Yeah. And that'll mean so much in different parts of life, whether it's go for it with the army, go for it with, you know, I wouldn't change very much really. You know, I know I came out late and all of that, but I wouldn't change anything. I got a great kid out of it. I had a great marriage for a long time. Things happen for the reasons they happen. So, you know, and I don't know if I'd be sat here with having the privilege of you asking me the question if I was to wish away any of it. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Actually, there's not much I would tell myself. Those are young people though. I would definitely, you know, somebody else, you know, I'd definitely say go for it. And just find your people.
Yes.
Find your people. And I know it's easier to say than do, but just go out and find the people that make you feel the most comfortable. Mates that make you feel the most comfortable. The workplace that you feel like you could work in, you know, and I would say be cheeky as well.
It's good advice.
Be cheeky. It is, you know, like if you want to work somewhere and you don't have the qualifications for it, just message them anyway. And just
go for it.
And give them a well-rounded reason why you would be a good employee. And then people don't care about GCSEs when they get to know people, because people like people. You just need to use the power of communication. So I'd say be cheeky. Cheekiness. Don't be, cheeky is the right word, because you can't be cheeky. You can be cheeky in life, you know. That's allowed. You just can't step over the red line. But that's the advice I'd give.
I love that. I think that's great advice. Look, we'll end with our rapid fire questions.
Okay.
And you've mentioned a couple of people. You mentioned Madonna, you mentioned RuPaul, you mentioned Christina Aguilera. But who is your favorite queer icon?
Okay, so rapid fire, it would be Sam Smith right now.
Love that. They're amazing. Yeah. Love that choice.
Yeah, they are. And just that, if we're going to talk about letting your authentic self, then they have certainly done that against probably the advice of record labels and managements, and still hit number ones because we see it as truth, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, they are mine.
I love that. What is your favorite queer TV show, movie, musical,
Queer
or
as
book?
Folk.
Queer as Folk.
Good. Yeah.
Love that. If you had to lip sync for your life, what song would you choose?
Ooh, Gangsta Paradise.
Amazing. Amazing. I love
As
that.
I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Yeah, absolutely.
There you go.
Word for word, but I probably have forgotten a little bit of it, but that's what I'd lip sync, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. If you could have one drink with any queer person, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Oh, Apple founder Tim Cook kept coming in.
Yeah.
What's Steve Jobs? No, it's Tim Cook.
No, Tim Cook, CEO of Apple now.
So
he's queer.
It's the current one.
Okay, Tim Cook. Yeah, he's on my dream list for this podcast. So now I can tag him, and maybe he'll see it, and maybe we'll get him on the podcast.
Yeah. So yeah, Tim, if you are listening to this, number one, get on the podcast.
Yeah.
And number two, say hello to me if I ever walk past your fanboy.
Yeah. Come to Manchester, have a drink.
Come to Manchester, have a drink. You'll be blown away. You'll end up buying the whole street, and then we can all do it up.
There you go.
you can afford it.
They've got some money in the bank. They can do something.
Oh, they've got a little bit, haven't
they? Final rapid fire question. Who in your network would you like to hear on this podcast, and what one question would you want me to ask them?
Okay, I know who. One person would be Blair Armani. Muslim queer woman. She's married to a guy now, but she is a Muslim queer woman. And the one question I would ask her is, does she think she would be such a big global influencer if she hadn't, although she came out as queer, if she hadn't converted to be a Muslim as well as being queer?
I love that.
I've always wanted that, and I've never. She is my friend, so you can get her on your podcast because I'll sort it out for you.
Yeah,
and she has a bloody big following as well. So maybe show hers before mine, so everybody start already following the podcast, and then they can listen to me. But also, I've always wondered that. I know it's a silly question, but actually, because I deal a lot with intersectionality and stuff like that, and there's a lot of influences. I'm literally just sat in a hall with bloody stuff, you know what I mean? And some of them you sort of like, what are you influencing? And some of them you get what are they doing? But they're all making dough, so can't take that away from anybody. But I've always wondered for Blair, is it the intersectionality? Because a lot of people are afraid of intersectionality.
Yeah.
They're afraid. I know this is quick fire, but let me just get my point out. Which people say, well, you're either on one camp or you're in the other. You don't need to mix them, especially like black and queer and stuff like that. Like Jamaicans do not like anybody that's not straight. Do you know what I mean? So there could be hard to be from one community and want to be part of it, and then to say you're in a different one, that could be hard. So I've always wondered with Blair, would she be so well known if she didn't be really brave and take that crossover?
Yeah.
So Blair, make sure you send this to her. And then, I'll get her to listen to it. And then Blair, get your ass on here and answer that question, please.
I love that. That's awesome. Chris, thank you so much for being on this podcast. As I say, I've always so admired how authentic you are. And it's just something that I take from this conversation is the authenticity you brought forward. And just really appreciate you being on the podcast with me today.
Thank you for having me.
Quit talking walls and winding road. Together